Indonesia's capital, Jakarta, has been marred by post-poll violence. Hundreds of supporters of the unsuccessful presidential candidate, Prabowo Subianto, took to the streets to protest. These demonstrators hurled rocks, petrol bombs and burning projectiles at police forces. Some protesters also set fire to a police dormitory and vehicles in the capital. Security forces responded to the violence using water cannons and tear gas. The National Police spokesperson has said that protests turned violent late Tuesday and continued through the night. Police have now detained dozens of protesters. These clashes followed a rally held by President Joko Widodo after official election results showed a clear win for the incumbent. Widodo won more than 85 million votes of a total of 154 cast in the world's third largest democracy. Elections in Indonesia were held on April 17th. Widodo's opponent, the former General Prabowo Subianto, has refused to accept the results and declared himself the winner. His campaign plans to challenge the election in the Constitutional Court. They allege massive fraud but have provided no credible evidence so far. On to other news. The top Trump government officials briefed divided Congress lawmakers on the escalating tensions with Iran. The delegation was led by the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, Acting Defense Secretary Patrick Shanahan, and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General Joseph Dunford, along with members of the intelligence community who briefed U.S. representatives about the standoff. The Defense Secretary Shanahan said that while threats from Iran in the Middle East remained high, deterrence measures taken by the Pentagon had deterred attacks on Americans, a statement reiterated by the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo.
Intelligence is borne out in attacks, and I would say it's also deterred attacks. We have deterred attacks based on our reposturing of assets, deterred attacks against American forces. Our biggest focus at this point is to prevent Iranian miscalculation. We do not want the situation to escalate. This is about deterrence, not about war. We're not about going to war. This is about continuing to protect our interests in the Middle East and conducting the missions that we are there to perform.
I've got a couple quick points about the conversations we had with the House and the Senate today, and then I'll turn it over to Pat. First, we shared with both the House and the Senate our strategic campaign, the effort to push back against Iran's malign activity, 40 years of terrorist activity. And so we talked to them about that. We tried to place the recent intelligence in context of that 40 years of history, and we walked through our efforts and our ultimate objective over the past days, which has been to deter Iran.
However, Democratic Senator Bernie Sanders implied that the officials had not told the truth, comparing it with the Vietnam War.
Be very brief and say that I think, as most Americans know, way back when we were lied to about the situation in Vietnam, and we went into a war which ended up costing us 59,000 lives based on a lie. 2003, we were lied to in terms of Iraq supposedly having weapons of mass destruction. We lost over 4,000 brave Americans, and hundreds of thousands of people in the region were killed and forced to leave their homes. I believe that a war with Iran would be an absolute disaster, far worse than the war with Iraq, and I hope the American people tell this administration that we will not go to war in Iran.
Remember, the U.S. military has deployed a carrier strike group, bombers and Patriot missiles to the Middle East in response to what Washington said were troubled indications of possible preparations for an attack by Iran.